Good evening and welcome into the WNK page. I am George Herbig, Chief Forecaster here for Weather Now Kentucky. We do have tonight's episode of Kentucky's Weekly Outlook, finally able to bring it back. We had a kind of stalled out weather pattern there. It didn't really make sense to do a whole Outlook video over things, but as we head into the latter part of March here, mid-March going into the latter part of March, things are really beginning to ramp up in multiple ways, really. So we have a few things to talk about tonight in regards to a storm system that we're expecting to roll through Thursday and Friday. And then a bit of a flip of the pattern will occur. Quite a few flips over the next 2 weeks that have been showing up really consistently for a while now. So we do feel comfortable talking about it with you here. As always, as you're funneling in here, if you wouldn't mind, tap the share button at the bottom portion of your screen. You'll see that share button. Put this onto your news feed so that way your friends and family can view it as well. Make sure everyone's getting informed. Of course, as you're funneling in, make sure you're saying hello in both the YouTube and Facebook chats. We are live on both YouTube and Facebook. So if you want to watch this on your TV, you can throw it up on your TV using YouTube. I don't know if you can still do it using Facebook anymore. I know they've changed quite a few things. But hello to everyone. Let's see here. I'll give it probably about 2 minutes before we dive in on what to expect for everyone. Let everyone get a second to get in here. Cassie, hello. Brittany asked, is it supposed to rain all day Friday? We'll get into that. Brittany, thank you for tuning in. Jenna, hello. How are you doing? Hello, Freemeyer. I hope I'm saying that correctly on Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in as well. I want to say real quickly as well, we've our Twitter has been, or X, whatever you want to call it, has been going up quite a bit. Thank you guys a lot for your support over there as we try to venture out on the multiple platforms. We figure the more platforms we get on, the more people we can reach and more people we can get informed with our expectations on things. Haley, hello, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you for asking so much. I appreciate that. Again, if you're just not tuning in here, I'm George Herbig, Chief Forecaster here for Weather Now Kentucky. On tonight's episode of Kentucky's Weekly Outlook, we finally get a chance to talk about some weather occurring. That's why we haven't really done a whole lot of these. I try to keep the broadcast to a minimum. We try to do them, obviously, to... You guys love the broadcast. We love doing them. Our sponsors love when we do them. So we try to do them, but we try to keep it limited to when they're needed as much as possible. And quite frankly, it's just been beautiful in Kentucky. I mean, we've had a couple rainy days here and there, but for the most part, it's been beautiful for the last 2 to 3 weeks. The pattern's really going to change, though. We really get ramped up here. The reason it was so pretty outside for so long is because we were just stuck in a blocking pattern. Everything was kind of blocked out of here, besides a few rainy days. But the pattern really changes for later this week, starting tonight, really, and then going later this week. Especially by mid-March, we actually flip to a really cold pattern, and then we'll flip back to some warm air. And then by the end of March, we see a pretty strong signal for some really cold air to move through. What that means in terms of snowfall or thunderstorm forecast, we don't know the answers to that just yet. However, we do know that because of all these flips that are occurring and things opening up, like the polar vortex opening up there toward Canada, being able to come down, that's going to shove a lot of systems into our direction. So we have a lot to discuss here. Ivy, hello, how are you? Hi from Frankfurt, hello. I have no idea, Ivy. I've been trying to figure that out in the background. I still just can't really get it going just yet. I don't know what the issues are. I want to say real quickly, thank you to everyone that's sharing the video. I appreciate that. I see all the hearts and likes coming across the screen as well. Thank you so much for your help with that on Facebook. I appreciate y'all helping us share our information out here. On YouTube, Karen, hello from Somerset. How are you doing? All right. I think we're kind of good on all the intros here. Let's see here. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull this on over. Take that down for now. I want to show you, we do have an alert day that we just put out about an hour ago for Thursday into Friday. This kind of was a system that, we've been seeing for a while. Mike and I, along with the rest of the team, have been talking about it for at least the last 3 days. We've been seeing it for like the last 4 or 5 days. But as always, we wait until we get to more of the what we call convective allowing models to get a hold of the system before we really talk about it too much. Because if you would have asked us 2 days ago, how was the system looking? Well, it looked like really nothing was happening, maybe some rain showers. And that still might be the case. I want to put that out there. However, the models today especially have really trended up for our area in terms of the potential for strong to severe weather. So we're going to break that down for you. I don't know where the graphics at for it, but we have something to talk about that might be occurring near the 19th. And then we also have, I'm going to take a little bit of a look into the latter parts of March. I know we've talked about it a couple of times on the page over the last couple of days, but I want to talk about it a little bit more in depth, but not too much because it can get a little bit lost in translation. But yeah, so the models have taken a tick up today. Sometimes they do that, though, within the 24-hour period of a system, and then they end up just being absolutely nothing. So we have to be careful on putting too much faith or stock into this forecast. That's why we haven't really made any forecast maps just yet. I'm going to hold off until probably either late tonight or early tomorrow morning to really make forecast maps, because I want to see a couple of runs. But the 12Z Zulu time is what we use for in the weather world. But so 12Z and 18Z, basically the morning runs and the afternoon runs, it looked a bit concerning for our area. So let's break that down for you and show you what to expect. Thank you to everyone once again. Hello from Alaska. Wow, all the way out there in Alaska on YouTube. Hello out there. So I'm going to show you a couple different models, because I do want to point out real quickly that there isn't one singular message that's being sent from all models that we can just be like, okay, this is for sure going to happen. The models that we look at when we get into this type of time range are the HRRR model, the Rapid Refresh model, and the NAM3K model. Basically all high resolution models. And unfortunately, they all show a little bit of a different idea of what to expect Thursday night going into Friday morning, which does not help our job in the slightest. The last couple of systems, there have been some great agreement, but for this system, there's a little bit of disagreement on the timing. The timing is all the same, but there's a little bit of a disagreement on what the exact modes of the storms are going to be and how they're going to move through Kentucky. And those two questions can change a lot of things. The reason for this difference on all the models is actually what's happening above our heads. So what's happening above our heads, the winds will crank up at some point. We do know that, and that's going to be our forcing mechanism to actually force the storms to create and evolve themselves near Kentucky and Missouri and Illinois and the Tennessee as well. The question is, where does that maximum range really set up? Where you get that maximum range, what we refer to as the vorticity max. I know it's a lot of big words there, but basically where we get that set up helps us to identify where these storms will actually initiate and trigger. That is a bit inconsistent on all three models, and I'll show you that real quickly, and then we'll actually go through the actual reflectivity itself. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this on all the way through here. This is going to look confusing for a second, but just bear with me. So I'm going to pull this all the way through to about 6, let's call it 6Z. Okay, so that's 36 hours. Let's click on the 36 hours. Let's compare the models, okay? So I'm not going to click on every single one of them. There's a lot of models we can look at. We're going to look at the 3, and I'm going to break this down for you. So basically where we see that red and the yellow start to pop up, even the deeper purples, that's where we can feel like storms are beginning to initiate. And I also want to point out to you, this is going to look absolutely crazy here, but these lines that you're seeing through the atmosphere or the upper layers here, typically those are straight lines. Where we see them kink or where they start to curl up, that's where storms will usually trigger at. So I want to just point out to you, there's a bunch of little kinks that we're seeing across all of Kentucky, mainly western side, west of I-65. And also the Vort max, or the maximum speeds above our heads for the winds, line along the Ohio River. And as I push this on forward, let's say 38 hours, you'll see it starts to enter western Kentucky and leaves the Ohio River. So let's pull this back. I just want to show you just kind of what every model is seeing right now. So this is the HRRR model. It has the maximum winds along the Ohio River. This would indicate that the strong to severe thunderstorm threat would be along the Ohio River at first, and then eventually it would go toward western Kentucky. If I were to pull up the NAM3K model, you can see it looks a lot different. It actually has the maximum winds above our heads in southern Indiana, and really doesn't really have actually has a big fall off here for Kentucky, which would indicate a cap is in place. Basically a lid over the environment, stopping storms from going. And then eventually this little bulk of maximum winds pushes into western Kentucky later on Friday morning, and then will eventually trigger storms. However, if it does wait longer, right, and storms come, let's say, 3 to 5 a.m. Friday morning, well, there's a little bit less energy for them to play with. If storms are a little bit faster, like the HRRR model is showing right here, then storms will have a little bit more energy available for them to play with, right? And we all know storm energy is really important. Now let's look at the Rapid Refresh model here. It doesn't see a whole lot going on. But if I actually pull this up a couple of hours, it does finally indicate that the Ohio River area in western Kentucky does eventually get to going on the maximum winds. We're not going to look at this model. This model is absolutely crazy. So if y'all ever see, by the way, if you ever see anyone talking about the RRFSA model, probably a good idea to unfollow them. That is a horrendous model to look at. But I just want to kind of show you that, yes, we know a system is coming Thursday night into Friday, But where exactly those wind speeds, where they get really cranking, where they set up above our heads, that's going to be super important to figure out where the storms actually initiate and travel through. So what we're going to do now is kind of look at the reflectivity on the HRRR model and just kind of show you what this is looking like here. So I'm going to zoom this in a local view so we can kind of see where some city labels are and the timing up in the top left. Can you see that timing, by the way? Yes, you can. So the time is actually in the top left there, so it's in Central Time. So if you are on the Eastern side of things, just, of course, add an hour to it. But I'm going to pull this off through here. You can see for tonight, not a whole lot happening. There was a small threat for potentially a couple of rogue cells to pop up tonight. I'm not really seeing that threat occurring just because the cap that we have, the winds that are going on above our heads, they're not really fast enough to really force a storm to get going. When you're talking about storms, you have to have storm energy, right? You have to have moisture for it to play with, but you also have to have something to force it to go. And we're really missing that forcing mechanism right now. So I'm not really worried about any storms tonight. There was, again, it showed up on model data late last night that there might be a potential for some storms this afternoon and evening. That does not seem to be the case at this time. So let's push this on forward through early Thursday morning. You can see some storms ongoing in Illinois. Nothing really happening here in Kentucky at this point just yet. Late Thursday morning, you can see a line of storms does get going in southern Indiana. This might clip the northern portions of Kentucky, like let's say Florence or places up there toward very far northern Kentucky towards Cincinnati. Tomorrow afternoon between 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, you might get a strong cell or two, and one may potentially be severe. This would be more of a hell threat to me because the best energy is actually situated well above our heads, and when that happens, the storm is elevated, which usually leads to more of a hell threat, less of a tornadic threat. Let's go ahead and push this on forward. So that line might clip you. That's not the main line we're talking about, though, guys. There might also be a couple of small rain showers down here toward Kentucky at this point on Thursday. Again, this is around 4 p.m. Eastern Time. These lack quite a bit of wind energy, so don't expect these to be severe. If anything happens, there might be some small hail in them at the absolute most. So let's push this on forward here throughout Thursday afternoon. Not a whole lot going on. Thursday evenings where things start to tick up a little bit. So if we look out to our west here, we can see a line of storms starting to initiate back out there toward Missouri, all through Illinois, going through the western sides of Indiana. Again, this is actually valid for 9 p.m. Eastern Time for those of you wanting to know. As I push this on forward, I want to show you this down here. This is what we call a popcorn initiation. So you can kind of get that idea because of the way it just pops. So we go back 1 hour, nothing there. We go forward 1 hour, they're all popped up in the small cells. So this can be quite a dangerous setup here. The reason for that is if this does come, okay, now the difference of a few hours is going to be massive. So if this does come between, let's say, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., and it really starts going out in western Kentucky, I have some concerns for perhaps a couple of tornadoes to occur and some small to medium-sized hail in that area. The reason for that is when we get, of course, when storms are closer to sunset, right, you have the peak heating from the day that might be still in play, so you have some storm juice from that. You have better moisture because the sun is still probably up, maybe just now starting to go down, so you still have some warmer temperatures, some warmer moist layers, right? You still have some more moisture to work with. And also, as this front gets to coming in, there's actually a dry line behind it, so you can see a little gap in between the two storm systems here. So we have one group up here to the north, one group down here to the south. Someone's going to get gapped in between that, probably southern Indiana and northern Kentucky. But on the flip side of that, there's a dry line behind it. This is actually attached to a cold front. So for 1 second here, I'm going to zoom this out to the regional view here. I want to show you kind of what we're looking at once again, and then we'll zoom back in. So I'm going to fast forward this on through here, and you see what I'm talking about. There, see the gap. So this back line of storms right here, probably should stop using my finger, use my cursor. But you got your first line that we talked about here. Let's push this forward one more time. Here's the popcorn cells that we talked about. Here's your, this is actually closer to what we call the triple point up here to the north, where the low pressure actually is. And this is down here where the warm subtropical jet is, basically where that southern jet's lining up. And that's why we have two different points of storms here. And then you have a dry line in between those two. When we see a dry line setting up, this is actually a cold front that it's riding, by the way. Okay, so this back line right here, it's a cold front. And between that, we have a dry line or a dry nose indicating that some storms may be able to become a bit stronger because that moisture is more focused on one side of the storms. I hope that makes sense. So instead of having to, instead of having a big pool in your backyard, right? Instead of having a big pool in the backyard for you to have to spread so much water out, it takes so long to fill that up, right? If you just have a couple of slip and slides in the yard, right? You have one area of water here, one area of water there, one area of water behind you, right? That water is able to fill up that slip and slide a little bit faster than a big pool because there's less surface area for it to take up, right? Same thing with the storms here, right? There's a big pool of moisture here, big pool of energy, but with that dry line in between, or that dry area between the two lines, that energy and that moisture can be focused on each individual smaller line rather than a massive wave of rain, which you'll see here in just a second. So when I fast forward this a few hours, right, that dry line starts to go away. So I want to show you this. I'm going to fast forward a couple hours and then I'll bring it back. That dry line starts to go away, and now we have just a main, really big line of moisture here. So storms will become weaker at that point. Let me go ahead and zoom this back in here for you. Sorry, my allergies going crazy, so my nose is absolutely itching. Anyone else's allergies going crazy? My allergies are going absolutely insane last couple of days. It's really itching my nose. All right, so let's push this back on forward here. I'm going to break down the timing for you again. So as I push this on forward, we got 10 p.m. Eastern time here. Storm starting to get going out toward western Kentucky. And then we push this on forward again to 11 p.m. Eastern time. Again, we still see some of that popcorn kind of set up here for western, west central Kentucky. And then as I push this on forward here, the two lines try and connect themselves. I don't know if they quite will, but the two lines try and connect themselves at that point. Creates a strong line of storms from northeastern Kentucky toward I-65 and then down to the south, and then that pushes on out, and then we have the second line of storms, which may be severe once again, out for western Kentucky, basically from Bowling Green to Paducah. And then those will dive down to the south here, and then there'll be a bunch of rain on the backside. So quite a messy setup. So again, the time frame at the moment looks to be Thursday from around 9 p.m. Eastern time to Friday around 3 a.m. Eastern time for the most severe timeline. Rain will go outside of that, but the most severe vulnerable time zone is definitely at this moment from 9 p.m. Thursday to 3 a.m. Friday. Timing is everything on this, and I'm going to show you that to you right here. So I'm going to zoom this out real quick. We're going to do a little science lesson for some of you nerds like me in the chat. And if you get offended by the word nerd, then I'm sorry. But I think it's funny. So I just want to show you. So this is surface-based CAPE. So basically, this is storm energy that's at the surface. You have different layers of the atmosphere. Like, for example, this is mixed layer CAPE. This is all the way up into the atmosphere, yada, yada, yada. What we're focused on right now is surface-based CAPE. So I'm going to push this on forward here for you. So I want to show you, for example, this is actually around 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time, okay? So what we see here is a big pool of CAPE, basically from Florence, Kentucky to Bowling Green to Paducah. Nothing really happening out Eastern Kentucky. They hardly ever get CAPE out there anyway, unless something is really swinging wide. But this is a pretty narrow low pressure. This is going to go up to the northeast here. But I just want to show you, over 1,500 joules of CAPE. Joules is just a measurement, so over almost 1,700 joules per kilogram of CAPE. Basically what that means is that's plenty of storm juice for storms to be able to turn severe, especially at the surface, which leads to more of a tornadic threat, right? But when I push this forward a few hours, watch what happens to this CAPE. So this is around 8 p.m. We're on, around sunset time. Still some sun's peeking through the clouds, so we have some increase of CAPE. Watch what happens when we get closer to 11 p.m. to midnight. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So now we're at around 11 p.m., right? That CAPE, way lower. Not as much storm juice for it to play with here. So that's why timing is absolutely everything. If storms get going closer to 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., then we're in play for some strong to severe storms, especially from Bowling Green to Paducah, maybe toward Henderson, even all the way up toward Louisville for a brief period, right? But if storms get going way later, around 11 p.m. to midnight, not as much storm juice for them to play with. That's going to lead to what we call a cold pool action, which allows for the storms to outflow, which means they become weaker and becomes just a massive rain shower at that point. So that's why we haven't really made any forecast maps yet. We haven't really talked about it a whole lot because we do know storms are coming Thursday and Friday, but the timing at which they come is absolutely crucial. And I want to show you, let's go ahead and zoom back into the local view here. pull up our reflectivity once more. So this initiated, once again, around 9 p.m. or so. So I'm going to click on 32 hours, and we're going to compare it to the other models. Right? What I want to show you is the HRRR model has it coming at around 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when it starts, which would allow for a little bit more severe weather. When I click on the other high-resolution model, there's nothing there, right? So it actually has it starting around the 35-hour mark, I believe. Actually, it's even later than that, the 37-hour mark. Okay, even later than that. There we go. Around the 39-hour mark. So the NAM3K model, which is kind of like, when we talk about these types of setups, there's really only 3 models we look at, guys. The Rapid Refresh, the NAM3K model, and the HRRR model. So the HRRR model, once again, has storms starting around 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, while the NAM3K model doesn't have it starting until almost 4 to 5 a.m. Eastern Time Friday morning. So that's a discrepancy of about, 7 hours? Right, so we really can't make a forecast just yet because that is a massive difference. We're talking about storms being able to start around sunset, or storms starting at quite literally our coldest and most safe point of the 24-hour period, which is 4 to 7 a.m. Usually that's when you have your least amount of energy, your least amount of heating, your least amount of moisture, right? They'll still be strong according to the NAM3K model, but they won't be quite as potent, I guess for lack of better words, as the HRRR model is indicating. So that's why we've had some issues with making a forecast, because we haven't really seen very consistent data just yet. But guys, look forward to us posting multiple updates on Twitter, Facebook, and we'll probably go live on Facebook and YouTube at some point tomorrow as well with an update on what to expect. Of course, let's take a look though. Real quickly. Current temperatures, I almost forgot to do this. Current temperatures across Kentucky, 68 degrees in Elizabethtown, 73 degrees out there toward the Paducah area, 61 degrees, a bit on the cooler side because of the elevations out there toward Pike County. The highs today were absolutely gorgeous. 74 here in Hardin County. Kind of stuck on that word for a second. 78 out there toward Madisonville. Again, much cooler out here toward eastern Kentucky and Harlan at 60 for a high out there. One thing I do want to point out here real quickly before we go, though, is it's going to feel much different. Much different. So tomorrow, yeah, let's go ahead and put this in the local view script. Why not? Tomorrow, right? Thursday, you can see right around lunchtime. Here's lunchtime right here. Dew points really starting to kick up. Once dew points go above 60, that's when it starts to feel a bit muggy outside. By the afternoon and evening on Thursday, we're talking about dew points approaching 65 degrees. That's when it starts to become a little bit more like, okay, let's just not even look outside, because if I look out the window, I'm probably going to start sweating. That's when you start getting to the really humid aspect of things. So really muggy conditions coming through for Thursday and Friday. And you can see as the cold front pushes through, it dries it out real fast. And really interesting note here. So as we move to more of the long range look, I'm going to show you some of the long range data here. And we have quite the flip coming up. But before I get to that flip and show you kind of what's expected for mid-March to late March, maybe a wintry surprise, if you will, I do want to give you a quick message from the people that pay our bills around here. We appreciate them a ton. Romp Fest, June 26th to June 29th, 2024. It returns at Yellow Creek Park in Owensboro. They have a star-studded lineup. I believe they're about to announce even more additions to their lineup if they haven't already. So make sure you go follow at RompFest on Facebook, and we have them tagged in the video description if you want to see some more of their information there. But RompFest, an absolutely blast of a time to have. You cannot go wrong going to one of Kentucky's longest traditions, RompFest. Just a beautiful, beautiful event they host every year out there. Right implement. Look, guys, I'm old today. And, I'm actually about to go to Right Implement and see if I can get me a new mower because they have phenomenal equipment, great quality, and they're running a bunch of sales right now, like this Z900, $0 down for 36 months or 0%, and that goes until February 29th, so that one's actually expired. That's my bad on that. I should have taken that one out of there. But they have several other deals that are ongoing, like the Z500. I push mow my lawn, and I've got a pretty big lawn, and so... can't be doing that anymore. I'm going to go visit them You should too. They have 15 locations across southern or across Kentuckiana. Go visit Right Implement. They're phenomenal people. Great customer service, and you can't pass up these deals on phenomenal John Deere equipment. Box Drop Bardstown. These people are awesome, man. I love working with them. First of all, you got a local company. They have mattresses that are high quality, marked at 30 to 80% off. 30 to 80% off. And on top of that, they're running a special deal for W&K fans only. You get a free pillow when you make a purchase of an already discounted mattress. And they have adjustable bases. Shout out to this person who got their free pillow by using our code W&K with them. Just call them, set up an appointment, or go visit their website. Box Drop Bardstown, phenomenal people, man. I love working with local Kentucky companies. It's always a blast. So now that we've gotten that taken care of, thank you guys for being patient with that. I appreciate you. Helping us out there. What does CAPE stand for? It's another word for buoyancy. It's basically the measurement of like storm fuel, storm juice. Great question out there. So what I want to show you real quickly before we wrap up this broadcast of Kentucky's Weekly Outlook here is that we have a couple of temperature flips coming ahead. So this is the 850 millibar temperature anomaly chart. Blah, 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 blah. What all it means is basically how your temperatures will compare to your averages. By the way, my nose is going crazy. I think I might have to take an extra allergy pill tonight. So right now, obviously, we are much above average. If you haven't been outside and you've lived under a rock and you haven't realized how warm it is out there, it's not supposed to be this warm in early March. It isn't. Now, we've been this warm the last few Marches, so we kind of forget that. But it isn't supposed to be this warm in early to mid-March. So right now, you've seen a bunch of red out there. As I push this on forward, though, after the storm system Friday, remember, it's riding a cold front. We see the temperatures kind of take a swing. Sunday going into your work week, next week on Monday, we are much below average for March. So just in a span of 3 or 4 days, temperatures are going to feel much different, about 14 to 15 degrees Celsius below average. It's going to be cold out there. So for those of you that are wanting to plant or get things going for the growing season, not the best time to do it. We do have a sub-freezing temperature profile arriving for the 19th to the 21st. And then as I push this on forward further than that, some warm temperatures try to move back in. But then another storm system comes around Saturday the 23rd to Sunday the 24th. And that opens the door for our good old buddy, the polar vortex. Yep, it's opening back up and it's ejecting down into the central and eastern United States. This is going to lead to a much colder than average pattern. As I push us on forward here, you'll see that. And then we go back to some more kind of just normal temperatures, slightly above normal, and then things kind of get a little bit frisky once again after that as we see another wave of cold air push through, and this will probably be the last one in my opinion. So a couple of different flips coming in for mid to late March. Sorry, it's like a weird car that's just parked outside. You got to keep an eye on those things. It's just a weird car. It's just not moving out there. Okay. He's moving now. I think he is. Yeah. Maybe he's lost. I don't know. He's stopping again. I think he's lost. Now he's honking? There's never a normal day around here, guys. Now he's driving off really fast. Okay, that was like suspicious 101 right there. That's what we call that. But anyway, multiple flips coming up ahead, guys. It's going to be a much different into March than the way it started. Now, if it's in terms of severe weather, strong weather, or winter weather, we won't really know that just yet because, again, obviously we're a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks out in some cases. However, we do know that an active pattern is upcoming. When you have a polar vortex opening up like that and you have Gulf moisture trying to come in, something's going to happen. Now, what that looks like, once again, we don't know, but something is going to happen. All right, some questions now. Let's see here. Yeah, I never really plant until we get to about mid-April. A little bit around Easter is kind of what I go with. And even that's a bit of a stretch around here. You just never really know when these cold shots are coming in. DoorDash, wrong address, maybe. I have no idea. That was weird. All right, I think we did a good job explaining everything. Not a whole lot of questions tonight, which is a good sign. I appreciate everyone tuning in. As always, we'll have plenty of updates out for you guys as this system gets a little bit more consistent on models. We'll have different updates for you on what to expect. So we'll probably have an update out around 9 p.m.-ish or so tonight. And then we'll have another update out, of course, in the morning. Might do a live video tomorrow morning, depending upon how data looks. And of course, if things look significant enough, we'll be live for the duration of the event. So I just want to say real quickly, thank you once again to everyone tuning in. This has been Kentucky's Weekly Outlook presented by Box Drop, Barstown, Romp Fest, and Right Implement. Thank you guys so much.